In a city where dreams are as big as the skyscrapers, love can appear in the most unexpected places, even when you least expect it. A 35-year-old mother, working tirelessly just to make ends meet, never thought fate would bring her face to face with a man who had the whole world at his feet. But sometimes, the heart doesn't care about age, fame, or fortune. Her name was Monique Harris, a single mother raising her 14-year-old son, Trey, in the bustling city of Los Angeles. She was a single mother, raising her 14-year-old son Trey after losing her husband in a sudden hit-and-run accident. Every day she worked long hours as a waitress in one of the city's most luxurious restaurants, serving plates to people who barely noticed her existence. She dreamed of opening her own small restaurant one day, a place where she could share her love for cooking and create a better life for her son. But for now, her life was a constant struggle between bills, work, and caring for Trey. On the other side of the city, the world knew Dan Seon Woo, the superstar whose name appeared in every magazine and on every screen. At 26, he had captured the hearts of millions. Every girl wanted him, every fan adored him, and his life seemed perfect to anyone watching from the outside. But behind the fame, the lights, and the red carpets, Dan's life had not always been easy. Dan was born in Seoul, South Korea, and lost his father at a very young age. With no close family to care for him, he was placed in an orphanage, where life was harsh and lonely. From the beginning, he learned to rely on his intelligence, his talent, and a quiet determination that set him apart from the other children. He loved performing and acting, but he had no guidance, no one to show him how to turn that talent into something more. Everything changed when Dan was 15. A famous actress named Evangeline Starling, known for her grace, talent, and big heart, was organizing a charity event through her NGO, which helped children who had experienced tragedy. She happened to watch Dan perform in a small local theater. She was immediately struck by him, not only by the way he moved and spoke on stage, but by the depth in his eyes, the way he carried a life far heavier than his age should allow. She learned about his past, the loss of his father, and the struggles he had endured in the orphanage. Something inside her told her he needed a chance, someone to believe in him, and she decided to adopt him. Under Evangeline's care, Dan's life transformed. He learned discipline, refined his acting, and discovered a world he had only dreamed of. He grew from a shy, lonely boy into a confident young man with charm, intelligence, and a presence that could captivate everyone around him. Life changed completely after Evangeline Starling adopted Dan. Suddenly, everything moved fast. One moment, he was a lonely boy with nothing but dreams, and the next, he was living in a beautiful home, surrounded by comfort and attention. As the years passed, Dan grew into a fine young man. His looks were striking, his talent was natural, and his intelligence made people listen when he spoke. Casting directors noticed him quickly, and audiences could not take their eyes off him. From his teenage years into adulthood, his life became all about fame, movie sets, long shoots, interviews, and flashing cameras. He starred in film after film, each one bigger than the last. People praised his acting, admired his discipline, and talked about how effortlessly he carried himself. What truly set him apart was not just his face or his talent, but the way he understood emotions and brought real feeling into every role he played. It was as if his past pain gave his performances a depth no one else could fake. Yet, behind all the applause and success, Dan felt something missing. No matter how much his life seemed perfect on the outside, inside him lived a quiet loneliness. He had the dream house, expensive cars, money, and had dated famous models and public figures. Still, when the lights went off and the noise faded, he felt empty. He struggled with his identity. No matter how far he had come, people still introduced him as Evangeline Starling's adopted son, as though his success belonged to someone else. He wanted to be seen as his own person, not just a boy saved by mercy. That weight stayed with him every day. He loved Evangeline deeply and respected all she had done for him, but he wanted a name that stood on its own. He wanted happiness that felt real, not staged for cameras. The pressure of always proving himself slowly became too much. In his search for peace, Dan began spending time with the wrong crowd. They promised escape, laughter, and freedom, but instead pulled him deeper into confusion and sadness. He became distant, tired, and lost in his own thoughts, questioning who he really was beneath the fame. As time passed, whispers began to spread. Blogs and gossip pages started talking about his lifestyle, twisting stories and making him the subject of cruel jokes. Some people claimed he would have been nothing if Evangeline had not adopted him. Others called him a product of pity, saying his success was handed to him. By the time Dan turned 25, the noise became unbearable. Headlines painted him as ungrateful and unstable, ignoring his hard work and talent. To make matters worse, a major film role he had worked so hard for was suddenly given to another actor, Lucas Reed, someone he had always been compared to. The movie, titled Midnight Horizon, was meant to be his biggest breakthrough yet. Losing it felt like losing the one thing that kept him grounded. Acting was his safe place, the one thing that made sense when everything else felt heavy. Burning with frustration and anger, Dan left his manager that evening and went out alone, looking for somewhere quiet to breathe and clear his mind. He wanted to escape the noise, the cameras, and the cruel words chasing him online. Without knowing it, that simple decision would lead him into a place where his life was about to change in a way he never imagined. As he sat quietly in a corner of the luxury restaurant, Dan Seon Woo tried his best to fade into the background. He chose the farthest table, lowered his head slightly, and hoped the soft lighting would hide him from curious eyes. After everything that had happened that day, he needed peace. He needed silence. For once, he just wanted to exist without being watched. Not too far from him stood a woman who looked deeply troubled. Her name was Monique Harris. She worked at the restaurant, but at that moment, work was the last thing on her mind. She paced slowly back and forth near the service area, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. Her brows were drawn together in worry as she tried to make a call over and over again. Each time the call failed, her breathing grew heavier. Something was clearly wrong. Dan noticed her movement. At first, he ignored it, but when she walked past his table again, lifting her phone slightly, his frustration took over. His mind, already clouded by anger and hurt from the news online, jumped to the wrong conclusion. He stood up and sharply accused her of trying to take pictures of him. The restaurant owner, a graceful but strict woman named Marissa Blake, rushed over immediately. She recognized Dan and panicked. Not wanting trouble or bad publicity for her business, she turned to Monique and insisted she apologize at once. Monique looked at them both, stunned. Then she spoke. Calm but firm, she explained that she was not interested in him or his fame. She said she had just received a call that her 14-year-old son, Trey, had been injured during school sports. She was trying desperately to reach the school, to know how serious it was. Without hesitation, she unlocked her phone and held it out to Dan, telling him he could look through it himself if he wanted. The words hit him hard. Dan felt immediate regret. His anger vanished, replaced by shame. He opened his mouth to apologize, but before he could speak, Monique turned around and walked away. Marissa stood there confused, while Dan remained frozen, feeling worse than he had all day. He could not let it end that way. Dan waited. When Monique finished her shift earlier than usual, clearly anxious and eager to leave, he followed her outside. He called out softly, stopping her just before she reached the sidewalk. Monique turned around, her face tired and closed off. She was not in the mood for conversation. Dan apologized, not quickly, not defensively, but sincerely. He admitted he was wrong and said he had no excuse for his behavior. When he mentioned her son, his voice softened. He said he understood why she was upset and that he was truly sorry for adding to her stress. Monique listened without speaking. Then Dan offered something unexpected. He asked her to let him take her to see Trey. He said it was getting late, and waiting around for transportation would only make her worry worse. Monique hesitated. She looked at him carefully, weighed her options, and finally agreed. Her son came first, and she had no other choice. The drive was quiet, but not uncomfortable. They arrived at the school's sports medical unit, where injured students were usually treated. The moment Monique saw Trey sitting up and laughing softly with a nurse, relief washed over her face. He was tall for his age, handsome, and full of energy despite the bandage on his leg. Then Trey looked up and noticed Dan. His eyes widened. "Mom, is that really him?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Excitement lit up his face instantly. Trey had been a fan of Dan's movies for years. Within minutes, other students still in the building noticed too. Whispers spread quickly, and soon a small crowd gathered. Phones appeared, voices rose, and Dan was suddenly surrounded. He handled it calmly. He smiled, took a few pictures, spoke kindly, and gently pulled away when it became too much. He returned to where Monique stood with Trey. Monique watched him closely, seeing him in a new light. And without either of them realizing it, something subtle but powerful had begun to form. When everywhere finally quieted down and the excitement around Dan faded, Monique let out a deep breath she did not realize she had been holding. She looked at him and thanked him softly for bringing her early and helping her calm her nerves. A small smile appeared on her face as she watched Trey talking happily, his eyes shining with excitement as he stood close to the actor he admired so much. Seeing her son smile that way warmed her heart. Soon after, Monique said it was time to leave. It was getting late, and Trey needed rest. Dan quickly offered to drop them off at home. Monique refused at first, not wanting to inconvenience him, but Dan insisted gently, saying it was the least he could do. Trey, on the other hand, was already excited. He could not hide his joy at the idea of riding in a famous actor's car. He pleaded with his mother, promising to behave and begging her to relax her guard just for that night. After a few moments, Monique gave in. The drive home was calm and surprisingly easy. They talked about simple things at first. Dan asked Trey about school and sports, and Trey proudly shared his dreams. Monique listened quietly, occasionally adding a comment or correcting her son with a soft smile. Dan found himself enjoying the moment more than he expected. It felt real, warm, and free from pressure. Over time, those small moments became more frequent. Dan began visiting them often, always careful, always thoughtful. Sometimes he showed up in funny disguises, wearing caps, glasses, or oversized jackets, just to avoid attention. Trey found it amusing, and Monique could not help but laugh. Being around them made Dan feel safe and happy. For the first time in a long while, his life felt normal. As days passed, Dan noticed a change in himself. He felt lighter, more focused, and more confident. His acting improved, his energy returned, and directors noticed his renewed passion. Monique became someone he listened to deeply. She advised him with honesty, care, and wisdom, the kind that came from life experience. She did not flatter him. She guided him. That made her presence even more valuable to him. One evening, as they sat talking quietly, Dan opened up. He told her how much her presence meant to him, how being around her and Trey brought peace into his life. Monique tried to hide her feelings, but her eyes said everything. She admitted she felt the same, but fear held her back. She was a mother. She was older. She worried about judgment, about pressure, about the world that surrounded him. Dan listened patiently. He reassured her gently, telling her that love did not follow rules or numbers. Slowly, with time and trust, they allowed themselves to cross that line. What started as care turned into affection, and affection turned into something deeper. They began dating quietly. But peace did not last long. The media soon caught wind of it. Pictures surfaced, rumors spread, and questions followed. Monique's once quiet life became stressful. Reporters gathered around her workplace, asking questions and invading her space. People whispered about her age, her past, and her role as a single mother. Some judged, others speculated. Emotions stirred everywhere. What was once private and gentle was now exposed to the world, and with that, their love was about to be tested in ways neither of them had prepared for. As time went on, the weight of the attention began to affect Trey deeply. At school and during games, other kids whispered and pointed. Some mocked him openly, talking about his mother and her relationship with a famous actor. They said cruel things they barely understood. Trey tried to ignore it at first, but the words cut deep. Soon, the teasing turned into confrontations. Trey started getting into fights, defending his mother with his fists when words became too much for him to bear. Monique noticed the change in her son immediately. The calls from school, the bruises, the anger in his eyes. It broke her heart. One night, she sat alone and made the hardest decision of her life. No matter how much she loved Dan, her son came first. With tears in her eyes, she chose to walk away from the relationship, believing it was the only way to protect Trey and give him peace. The decision crushed Dan. Losing Monique felt worse than any scandal or lost role. He respected her choice, but the pain stayed with him. For months, he disappeared from the public eye. No interviews. No shows. just silence. He poured himself into work, but something was missing. The joy he once found around Monique and Trey was gone. 1 year later, everything changed. Dan returned to the spotlight in a way no one expected. During a live international television interview, watched by millions around the world, he spoke from the heart. Calm, honest, and unguarded, he spoke about love, about choosing happiness, and about the woman who changed his life. Without mentioning names at first, he described a strong, single mother who taught him what family meant. Then, with steady eyes, he made it clear. He said he loved her, that he always had, and that no fear or opinion could change that truth. Monique watched the interview in disbelief. Her hands trembled as the words sank in. She could not believe he had said all that, openly, to the world. Before she could speak, Trey reached for her hand. He looked at her with maturity far beyond his age, and told her she deserved to be happy. He said she should stop running from love just because the world was loud. Those words gave her courage. Not long after, Monique showed up quietly at one of Dan's filming locations. When he saw her, everything else faded. She told him how she had always felt, how love never left her heart, only fear did. Dan stepped closer, cupped her face gently, and sealed her words with a soft kiss. Cameras caught the moment, and within minutes, the internet exploded. This time, they stood firm. Dan took responsibility, protecting his family with confidence and grace. He became a steady father figure to Trey, guiding him, supporting him, and earning his respect. With Dan's encouragement and support, Monique finally achieved her dream. She opened her own restaurant, a warm and welcoming place built on love, hard work, and new beginnings. Their love story grew stronger with time, rooted in understanding, patience, and respect. What began as an unexpected meeting in a restaurant turned into a family built by choice, resilience, and faith. And in a world full of noise, they found something rare. A love that lasted.
Hi fam, it's still your favorite girl Unye, all the way from Nigeria. I truly hope this story stayed with you and touched your heart in one way or the other. Thank you so much for the love, the comments, the share, and the constant support. Your honesty means more to me than you know. If this is your first time seeing my video, you are very welcome here. Please subscribe, like, and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any new story. Until next time, stay blessed, stay kind, and I will see you in the next one.